welcome everyone, and thanks for tuning in for this weekly deal final corner. So, this is your weekly property talk show brought to you by Property Filter, hosted by myself, your favorite Frenchman. And the idea is that we help you on our mission to empower our members, find another few thousand deals this year thanks to the Property Filter blueprint. And the purpose really with these weekly calls is to give you more and the best of what actually works right now in terms of giving you access to expert guests. We show you the latest and most current strategy tips and secrets. The purpose with this is to give you the best and the most current what actually works right now by inviting you expert guests who will share the tactics, strategies, and secrets at the coal face of the things that are actually working right now for all things to do with finding deals, making deals, and the reality of systemizing and running a high-performance business in property. So really it's my pleasure to introduce you a good friend of mine, James Fox, on today's Deal Final Corner. So James is a property investor based in Kent and been active for well over 10 years, starting in South Africa and then in the UK. He specializes in creative strategies, doing things like lease options, assisted sales, anything to do with unmortgageable or distressed sales. As well, is the founder of Jaox Ltd. So I'm guessing it's a cut of James and Fox. You'll have to tell us more about that, as well as like being involved in multiple developments, using investor funding, and generating strong returns. Got an appetite for reducing risk and all approach on risk management. He blends hands-on site knowledge, strategic partnerships with builders, deep understanding for how to add value on properties that you might walk past and not seeing a deal where there is actually one to be made. He's passionate about helping others grow their wealth safely through property. So I'm very much happy to hear more about James's talk here. So James has been a huge advocate of Property Filter for many years, and it's well overdue that we are making this call today. So very much looking forward to it. So we're going to hear about how you can secure deals without needing a mortgage and putting a deposit, where most people walk by properties thinking that there's no deals to be made. The art of working smartly with builders and how you can partner with them to increase the margins and share the rewards, together. We'll hear about his unique approach of identifying unmortgageable and distressed assets, again, that most people overlook, so you can transform them into profit centers, and the real stories and hard-earned lessons from actual projects working in the ground and very much hands-on, as well as all things to do with the creative strategies he uses to scale his property without needing traditional finance and massive capital. So very much looking for it. So James, over to you, my good friend. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Guillaume. Thanks very much for having me here, and thank you for sorting out the technical side, Guillaume. I'm not really gifted in that side of it. I'll quickly just put the presentation on, and then I can just run through that. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Fox. I'm the founder and director of a company called Jaox. For the last 24 months, we've kind of been working mostly on creative solutions to try, buy, and scale our property business. I started my business in 2017, mostly on rent-to-rent HMOs in South London. And for the first year, we just acquired properties, initially using a credit card to take on a property, paying a deposit in the first month's rent, and then getting money in and then just getting another one and another one. We scaled that up to 15. We managed about 75 tenants. It was a good little business. It wasn't very systemized. So it was a lot of sort of doing accounts and running around on a bicycle and doing all the repairs and everything like that. And then what happened is that a lot of professional HMO landlords came onto the market, as well as Brexit happened and COVID happened, and that kind of wiped that business out. So we needed to look at sort of a different way to make money. And I thought the best way is to sort of do delayed completions and lease options. And we tried to go forward with that, but not having any experience or knowledge on it. We did 2 big deals, one with 4 flats and one with 6 flats, and both of them failed. And I realized I kind of need to take a step back and see what I did not understand. So I started something called Property Entrepreneur, which Guillaume's been on as well. And that kind of helps you to structure and systemize a business. And that gave me sort of the grounds on what I need to use to sort of create a business and understand how a business is run. And secondly, I did a course by a guy called Mark Shaw, which has also been on the Deal Finders course. And he kind of explained what lease options are and different creative strategies and how you can implement it to sort of grow your wealth. And I've taken those 2 aspects and kind of just run with it. And so for the first year, we did one deal, and we kind of just keep working, keep pushing through. And currently, we got 4 properties in build, about 3 in legals, and about £2 million worth of pipeline of landlords who are currently buying from now, and we're setting up to purchase from them going forward. So what I'm going to quickly show with you is kind of what a lease option is and what an assisted sale is, and then explain why we're using it, and then give a case study for each one. And then secondly, I'm going to explain sort of how we communicate both with agents and solicitors, and how you can sort of relay your message of how you're helping vendors on the deals. And then lastly, how we're working with builders and social media to kind of promote ourselves. And hopefully it'll give you key aspects of what I implement in my business, and maybe you can take 1 or 2 aspects away and implement that in your business too. So let's start. So the reasoning why we do this is that I don't particularly want to buy properties with a mortgage. I've been presenting Property Filter for about last 15 months at the Central London Property Network. And what we can see is that a lot of properties at the moment take a very long time to sell. So I'll just highlight 2 aspects here. Properties that have been on the market for close to or over 90 days is 1,400, and this is local vicinity within Central London. And properties that have been sold for longer than 90 days is also 1,200. And what you can see is that there's a lot of stock on the moment that is spending a lot of time on the market. And if you want to get a little bit of momentum in your business, you can't be buying something and waiting around 6 or 7 months before you start build. Your builders that you lined up have gone to other projects. Your momentum, your drive has kind of changed because you're just waiting around and waiting around. So there's a time opportunity. And for us, this is a great market to buy properties, and we want to buy properties as quickly as possible and as many as possible in a very short time. Additionally, there's fees associated with getting mortgages or bridging finance, and these fees are quite high. We've just remortgaged a property now, and this lister's fees just for a simple buy-to-let were £3,000. So there's a lot of fees in it. Additionally, if you're looking to buy properties with tenants in place, a lot of these tenants are from old school landlords, and their rents are below market value. You will struggle to go out there and get a mortgage for these type of properties. And additionally, if you're looking to buy your own property and in the property sector, a lot of us are minimizing our income to minimize the tax we are spending, and we aren't often able to afford mortgages. So that's kind of the affordability. In terms of the speed, you're not governed by traditional conveyancing. Your conveyancer is not looking after yourself as well as a bank. They're only looking after you. And you can get through conveyancing in quite a short period, between 3 and 4 weeks. And so you can go offer on properties and get hold of the properties and start build works very quickly. Additionally, agents enjoy that because you are able to pay them at a very short period. If you can sign the option and they get paid their fee on signing the option in 3 to 4 weeks, you become a preferred buyer with them. And once you've got the initial deal over the line and they understand how you work, they'll start throwing you properties because all they want to do is sell, and they want to get their fees as quickly as possible. Additionally, there's very minimal upfront payment with options and lease options. So you can decide on how much you want to spend in terms of your initial upfront deposit. And additionally, you're not reliant on any surveys that the bank would send out there. So a lot of properties we are buying have problems, and that could be tenant problems, squatters, people that are not paying. It could be structural issues. We don't do short leases, but things like this, properties are unmortgageable. And if you have to try and get a survey or a mortgage on them, it's quite difficult. So what is the solution for? So a lot of it is for tired landlords, people that are looking to offload a lot of properties. And when you put on filters on Property Filter, you can see that most properties that are on the market at the moment are coming from landlords that are exiting the market. Additionally, it could be people that are mortgage arrears. It could be have survey or faults with surveys. You could have problem tenants. We often buy problem tenants and we help sort that problem. Or could do with a probate, and it just needs too much work for sort of a family coming in and buying the property. In terms of the two aspects that we buy from, first of it is lease options. And what we'll do is, what a lease option is, lease option is a legal contract which allows you to buy a property at a later date. You're not obliged to buy that property, but you have an agreement in place which gives you the right to buy it at a later date. So how it works is that you need to agree heads of terms with the seller of the property. And the heads of terms will generally consist of the price that you're buying it on, what your what your roles and responsibilities are during the time before you purchase, and that could be helping him paying off his mortgage, rectifying any faults, refurbishing the property. And once you've got that agreed or that document drawn up, you send it through to the solicitor. They generate the option, and you generally get the option back in 3 to 4 weeks. The benefits for doing something like this is that because you can create the option and you can create the type of agreement that you're using, you can generally try to put as little capital into the deal as possible. Generally, the holding costs are a lot cheaper. You're not using bridging finance or other finance products, which are quite expensive. You have the opportunity to add value to the property prior to purchase. If you do a long-term option, so anywhere from 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, the capital appreciation of the property becomes yours because you agreed a price today, but you're buying it at a later date. Also, it gives you time to have a clear exit strategy, and that could be selling the option onto someone else, refinancing at a later date, but you've got that long period to work out what's your best exit strategy, and it gives you more time to think and become optimum on that. In terms of the timescales, it's a lot quicker to get hold of properties. You can get this in and out within 3 to 4 weeks. And additionally, a key benefit is if a property is vacant, you can tenant the property, get that rent in, and you can use that rent to build up deposit if you're buying it at a later date. Now, there's a lot of benefits for you, but there's also a lot of benefits for a vendor when they want to do this. And in terms of that the legal system at the moment to buy and sell property is very long. And generally 1 in 3 properties fall over. So there's a commitment that you can make. So you can put a deposit down to the vendor and they know you committed to the deal. And so you become a committed buyer. You'll often be adding value. So you'll be putting capital into someone else's property. And then once you've done that, you committed to the purchase. Additionally, you can take on different responsibility for the property, and that could be sort of rectifying a problem, where it's to do with sort of tenants or maintenance or management, and that kind of takes away stress of the landlord, and he can hand that over to you. Additionally, this is always solution-based. Generally, the properties that we buy, there's an issue with them, and the ones we've bought properties with squatters in, where paperwork's not up to date, there's structural issues, there's a tenant that hasn't paid rent. And what you can do is you can take that problem away from the landlord. And often these are retiring landlords that just want to exit and they've kind of had enough and they just want to hand it over to you. You can fix the problem, you make the property mortgageable, and that way you can lift up the value of the property. And lastly, you're able to offer a lot higher price to the vendor than what he could receive on the open market because you can take away a lot of costs that are associated with buying properties. So in terms of a case study that we can quickly run through to give you an understanding of the type of projects we are doing, this is a property based in Folkestone. So it's a little coastal town in Kent, and it's a mixed-use property. It's got commercial on the ground floor. We've got a 2-bedroom flat and a 3-bedroom flat above that. The purchase price that we agreed with the landlord was £317,500, and it was marketed for £325,000. So rather than trying to sit there and negotiate the rent and just drop the rent as much as possible, we gave him an amount that we wanted, and then we explained to him, in order to give him that amount, we need to structure the deal. So what we did is we structured that we'd give him a 10% deposit up front, so he got 31 grand. We will have key access, so we'll have access into the property where we can go refurb and add value prior to purchase. We're then able to tenant the property, and then we'll buy it in 6 months' time. So in terms of our exit, we line up a bank that will value on the end valuation. So we got a valuation from a bank at 398,000, and we're able to get a loan of 282,000 from that bank. However, also during the time, we're able to tenant the 2 residential flats above, and we're able to make £2,000 a month prior to purchase that we can then add towards a deposit. What we can do is if we look at a traditional purchase versus lease option, we can kind of see the numbers and it can kind of give you the reasoning why we're going down this route of a more creative strategy. So if we had to purchase during a traditional means and we kept the price exactly the same, what you would do is you would buy this for 317,000. You would require a deposit of between 25 and 30%, which would be about £80,000, and you'd be buying this with the bridging finance or term finance. You'd have to take control immediately, and you have to start refurbishment works prior to tenanting it. Your exit is based on the mortgage that you're buying it and the value that you're buying it from day one, unless you're buying with the bridge and you're refinancing in 6 months' time. However, there's extra costs of bridging, and as well as sort of legals and fees for both sets of bridging and then onto term finance. Your net income, if you had to buy this with a 70% loan to value at 317, you'd make about 20K a year, but you would be leaving about 100 grand equity in this deal. So when you're using sort of your return on your investment, you're getting about a 19% return on your investment here. However, if we do the same purchase price on a lease option, we've put far less capital into the deal. We've put 30 grand in the deal. Because it's a much smaller amount, we can go to an investor and we can find an investor that helps us fund that. So we are putting minimal capital of our own and we're using about 25 grand of investor finance to help finance this deal. We can then add value prior to purchase and we can rent prior to purchase. Obviously, the income is slightly lower because we've got a higher loan to value or we've got a higher loan amount. But the equity that we're leaving in this deal after the 6 months is only 40 grand. So what that means that our return on our investment for the same deal is we get a 40% return on the investment and we only left 100 grand or 40 grand equity in it. So when you compare the two, if you've got limited funds in terms and you're trying to do multiple deals, lease options are a great way to take control of a property. And if you are buying it later and you can get a valuation on the back end, you do leave some capital in. I mean, there is deals out there where you leave no capital in, but we are trying to buy multiple properties from this landlord, and this is what we can negotiate. We can sort of grow our portfolio far quicker with leaving far less capital in this deal. If we look what an assisted sale is, I use the same contract for a lease option as an assisted sale. But the difference between a lease option and assisted sale is that you sell the lease option on to an end buyer. So rather than owning the property, you agree a price with the vendor. You then get to add value to the property, and then you sell that option on to a third person that will buy the property. So you never own the property. You're just doing the works, you're adding the value, and then you're selling that on to someone else. What happens is that you generally draw up heads of terms with the vendor as well. You agree a price with them, how long you have the option for, what works you can do to the property, what you're liable for, whether it's a mortgage payment, utilities, anything like that in between, your schedule of works, what you'll do to the property. Once you've agreed all of that, you'll send it through to the solicitor. They'll draw up the paperwork and you generally get keys in 4 weeks' time. You then do a quick refurb and you put it on the market for sale. Now, the benefits for me for doing that is minimal capital outlay. We generally take properties on like this where we pay the landlord about £1,000 upfront to get hold of the property. We have minimal holding costs because we're just either paying their mortgage or the utilities on that. We have no stamp duty because we never own the property. We have no finance costs in terms of bridging, solicitors, or legal fees to obtain funding. We have a very clear exit strategy is that we're going to sell at a certain time. And our profit, we don't have to sell it at a maximum price in order to obtain a profit. It's far quicker because we can get legals in the property in 4 weeks. Obviously, we still have the conveyancing on the back end, which takes time, but we can get in and out of a deal within 9 months. And what you can do is once you've agreed this with the vendor, you can convert these to options and maybe retain it on yourself or increase the term and buy it at a later date because you are in negotiations with the landlord and you've got already built that relationship with them. In terms of the vendor, we are a committed buyer. We are going and investing 30 to 40 grand into their property. We are committed to get this transaction over the line. We're also increasing the amount of people we're selling the property to. So a lot of properties at the moment, probate type of properties or dated properties are only sort of catered towards investors. It's very difficult to make these deals work as a flip opportunity because there's high cost of borrowing and the high cost of stamp. This is solution based, so there might be another problem that we're rectifying on this property, and we're able to give the vendor a selling price that he's happy with. Also for the vendor, if he's got sort of any double council charges or any sort of maintenance or any works like that, we are taking all of that over from him. So he can kind of just walk away and sort of give the property to us and we'll take care of the rest of it. So if we take that as an example, this is a 3-bedroom property that we've got an assisted sale option on in Felton that we're currently doing the refurbishment works. And how we obtained it is that we just phoned estate agents and we just asked, do you have any properties where tenants are not paying rent, where landlords are looking to sell because they're just really struggling at the moment? And this one came to us. And so what we offered the solution to the landlord is that we said, we will take on the cost of helping you evict the tenant. Now, the tenant was struggling to pay rent as she used to get childcare maintenance for a child that had a disability, and she was using that to pay for rent. And since the child turned 18, her benefit stopped and she was not able to afford rent. So she kind of got into a little bit of a debt spiral. We have helped her then get rehomed by the council and helped that whole process with her and helped move all her belongings to a new council property. And as well as we're helping with mortgage payments for the vendor. So the vendor obviously wasn't getting any rent. He still had to pay mortgages to the bank. And so we're covering that payment on his behalf so he does not get the property repossessed. So we've agreed a price of £275,000 for this property. And we are paying the vendor £1,000 a month. That will be it's non-deductible. That just helps him keep the property in his name and not get evicted. What we did is we paid him £1,000 upfront. We pay him the monthly fee, $1,050. We will deal the tenant eviction, and we have 18 months to get this whole transaction over the line. So our exit is we evict the tenant, we refurb the property for around £40,000, and we're looking to sell this property for about $400,000. So if we do the numbers again and we look at the two scenarios, we can then see the traditional purchase versus an assisted sale, the amount of capital required, and what your return on your investment is. So if we're taking the purchase prices for both exactly the same, if you had to buy a property for $275,000, you're paying $17,500 on stamp duty. So that's a cost straight away that you can wipe off. Your deposit, if you're using bridging finance, which is normally 30%, is 80 grand as a deposit. Your holding cost for a bridge is about £1,500 for that amount, and your refurb is about 40 grand. So your total costs that you incur are 75,000, just over 75,000. However, the capital needed to go into a deal like this is about 157,000. I've simplified these numbers. None of these numbers are taking sort of solicitor's fees or the fees that you would need to pay a bridge. It's just to keep them very round so we can kind of understand them. So you're looking at a profit of just shy of 50 grand for an investment of 160,000. So your return on your investment is 31%. When you look at that, that's not taking, a lot of us do use sort of investor finance. And if you had to give them a return of, let's say, 10% on that deal and you borrowed 150 grand, you would take off another 15 to 16 grand of that. So in terms of the risk that you're taking for the project, it's a very big amount that you would need to invest to get, 50 grand is a lot of money, but it's a lot of risk that's involved from a traditional purchase. If you compare that to an assisted sale, the deposit to get into this was £1,000. I pay the vendor just over £1,000 a month, so my holding cost, let's say over the course of the year, is 12,600. The refurb costs are exactly the same at 40 grand, but the total capital required is 53,600. So it's a far smaller capital required. So we'll go out to the market, we'll present this to an investor, and we'll try get a portion of about 40 grand from them and invest our own funds of about 10 to 15 grand into the deal. Our profit on this, we're looking to get about 72 grand. And so what we do, our return on our investment is about 135%. The profit is a lot more, the capital is a lot less. And so what it does, it gives us the ability, if we can raise a pot of 200 grand, to go do 3 or 4 of these deals simultaneously. And that's kind of what's driven us to sort of grow quite quickly. If we had to do one deal at a time, the legals are far longer, the refurb is exactly the same, but the amount of capital that we require in each deal is far more. So what we need to understand is we've sort of understood types of contracts and the type of deals, but what you need to understand is how do you communicate this with the different parties that are key part of the transaction. So initially it's estate agents, and then you'll deal with solicitors, then we'll start dealing with builders, and then how do you communicate with yourself to make sure you don't become overwhelmed with all of this work? And lastly, how do you market this so you can either get more deals or you can find investors? So that will kind of be the second part of this talk. So in terms of estate agents, if we look at this little clip again, this is a clip that Guillem's team send me for the talk every week. We can see that there's a lot of properties on the market. A lot of them have fallen through. A lot of them don't sell. And what agents want is they just want someone who's got some certainty. They've got speed, and we're going to be easy buyers. And so what you need to do is you need to get a little bit more professional in how you communicate with agents. So we have a very clear process of the initial call. Who do we speak to? How we organize our viewings, what feedback we have, how we offer, and how we negotiate. So in terms of what Property Filter can do for you and help your communication with the agent, I think it's probably a game changer, and we're all kind of using it probably on a daily basis. But something quick look like this price and status history shows you what price the property started at, what's its little journey, when it sold, when it came back on the market. And that kind of helps the questions and you gauge information from the agents. Now, what you always generally need to try to do is scenario-based questions. What happened? What was the situation? Why are the vendors looking to sell? And by having this information or most of the answers before you ask the questions, you can ask the right questions or prize that information from estate agents. So on the initial call, we're very specific about what we're looking for. So at the moment, we look to buy and acquire mixed-use properties for ourselves. So certain agents, we only tell them we're looking for mixed use. And for other agents, we are looking to flip houses because houses are selling a lot more than flats at the moment. We are very clear. We are looking for 2 to 4 bedroom properties in this price range, in this postcode, that are close to these transport links where they're struggling to sell either because they're too dated or have difficult tenants. And so we're very clear with our initial call. We also ask to speak to the best person. And obviously, sometimes when you give them a little bit of accreditation, they think I'm the best person in the office. They open up a little bit and they give you more information about the property and the vendor situation. Then in terms of the viewings, we always arrive before the time of the viewing. So I generally arrive 15 minutes before to kind of assess the exterior of the property and the kind of the neighboring houses. Most of these houses we're looking to sell. If the road is poor, or the neighbors' gardens are shabby, this is not going to sell for premium. And so we get a little bit of an understanding of the area beforehand. After the viewing, we always send the estate agent an email to say that we'll give feedback or an offer within 24 hours. And our feedback is quite generic, and we've got about 10 or 15 things, and we just change the email depending on that type of property. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this job as easy for an estate agent as possible. So he's got some feedback, he can give it to the vendor, and we kind of helping him. If they help us, we help them, they're going to help us. We then put an offer forward through to the estate agent. If the property is good and it meets our requirements, we're always going to offer. So generally, if I go view a property, I'm going to make an offer on it. And there's always going to be 3 offers with each offer. The first offer will be a cash offer, something where we can complete in 28 days. The second offer will be an assisted sale, where we'll look somewhere between 6 and 9 months to do the purchase. And the third offer will be a lease option, where we can sort of take on the property and buy it at a far later date. I'm not in a position to buy properties cash, so if they accept a cash offer, we go then to our investors and we sell the property on through to them for a fee, or we just put it out there and help that out. If they accept the assisted, but generally what happens is they want to buy it for the shortest period at the highest price. And the point of doing 3 offers is that it starts a negotiation. So if you give someone one option, they're either going to say yes or no. It's a closed question. Yes, I like it, or no, I don't like it. If you give a person 3 options, they'll generally pick 1 or 2 things from each one and try and make a blended solution for you. And then that helps with the negotiations. And what you can say is, I can offer you more because this is how I'm structuring the deal. I'm taking away the stamp duty, and that's the reason I can offer more on this. So it's always key to offer 3 offers or 2 offers to an estate agent so that they can sort of give it to the vendor and the vendors can make a choice. But what you need to understand is that people also communicate slightly differently. Some people like to listen and some people like to read. And so what the key is that when you put an offer through to an estate agent, it's best to type it all up, have it all up in your outbox, phone the agent. When he's on the phone, you send him through the offer. You can then run through the offer with him while he's reading and while you're explaining it through to him. So you make sure that your offer gets clear in his head and then he can be able to relay it to the vendor. You're trying to make their job as easy as possible. So you don't put any personal information, you give them the offer and you put in a format that he can then read it to the vendor, or we can just copy and paste it and send it through to the vendor. So the idea is we're making their job as easy as possible. Additionally, estate agents also speak a different language to someone who's doing creative deals. Now, obviously, we're talking about sort of assisted sales and options, but if you had to go to Google or ChatGPT and ask what the risks of this, the estate agents would just walk away and vendors would walk away. So how you want to do is when you put an offer forward through to them, you'd say we're looking to exchange within 28 days, the 4 weeks, and we're looking to complete 6 months later or 9 months later. Now, this is not technically correct, but estate agents understand what exchange is and they understand what completion is. You also clarify, like sort of right at the top of your email, we'll pay you your fee on exchange in 4 weeks' time. Now, when you tell them you're going to pay them in 4 weeks' time, it's better than them waiting 6 months for their commission. They will do everything that they can do to get that offer over the line. Also, because you're offering slightly different than a traditional offer, if they are struggling, they'll often put you in contact directly with the vendor and you can then negotiate with them directly. What you got to do, from doing the course, it took me about 50 or 60 offers to sort of get the first one over the line. I mean, you could get the first one or it could take you a long time. But I think with everything that you do, you've got to kind of refine it, and property filters like that. They get feedback, they refine their product, they make it better. And it's something that you need to do with yourself as well. So my communication with the agents, I kind of, why are these offers not getting through? Refine it, and it gets better and better and better. So that's something you need to do with estate agents. In terms of solicitors, so now we're at the stages that we've negotiated with it, we've gone down the viewing, we've negotiated the property, and now we've got this property offer accepted. So now you have to go through and take it to your solicitors. Now, most solicitors don't really understand a creative solution. Most of them are high street solicitors. They just work with traditional buy-to-lets or first-time buyers, and they do not understand sort of a creative solution. So you've got to work with a solicitor that's got a commercially minded solicitor or commercial team that can help you put this option in play. However, it's just not your solicitor, it's the buyer's or the seller's solicitor too. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that both sets of solicitors understand the process and have experience in doing a lease option or an assisted sale. The problem with that is that most estate agents have a solicitor on their book who they get referral fees from. So they'll generally, for every person that they refer, will get £200 or £300 from that solicitor in order to give them business. So when you're speaking to the estate agent, you need to say, well, listen, I understand that you might get a commission from them. Please let me know that fee of commission and I will pay that through to you to ensure that this transaction goes through smoothly. You'll also then ask your solicitor to give 2 or 3 recommendations for solicitors that the vendor can use so that the transaction can go through a lot smoother too. Generally, what we do is we pay the deposit to open the case for the vendor so that we have communication with both sets of solicitors. So we get the heads of terms drawn up with the vendor. We have email addresses for both sets of solicitors. We send them the heads of terms each, and then they're both clear. That means that the goalpost can't be shifted afterwards. So both sets of solicitors know what we've agreed upon, and they can then start drawing the contract and getting the contract drawn up between themselves. Contracts generally get drawn up with 72 hours, so it's quite quick. It's generic contracts, and what they do is they just change it a little bit for the terms which you've agreed. And then the vendor solicitor will sit on it for a little bit to try and justify their fee. And so take about 3 to 4 weeks to get through. What you need to do is you need to take a little bit of control of the legal process. The longer things take, the more chances of things falling out of bed. So what you need to do is, I always say, these are the heads of terms. We're looking to exchange contracts or get the option signed on this date. It then gives them a time frame to work backwards from, and they can't sort of put my case on when it suits them. This is a time frame. This is when I want it done. I'm very clear in the heads of terms of what we've agreed, and I generally get the seller to sign that, to agree it, even though that's not legally binding. For him, that's binding enough by the time they've sold it. It'll also have very clear in terms of waivers and access and what I can do to the property. So often you're going in there, you're refurbishing it, and it needs to state in there what you can and can't do to the property and what you're liable for. So the things that you will be liable for, it could be sort of council tax, gas, water, and all of those aspects because your build team will be using it. You'll also need to put insurance in place because obviously you're doing build works to it, and the landlord's insurance might not cover that. So what you'll do is you'll put insurance that got both your name as well as the vendor's name, and then it's a combined policy that you'll pay for. Another key tip is that you need to keep negotiating with the vendor during the conveyancing time. So once you've got your initial offer agreed, you might have agreed to put a deposit of £10,000. Now that could impact your cash flow for the deal or not, or have an investment that you would like to do elsewhere. Now, what you could say is like, are you happy that I pay you slightly more on the back end, but decrease the initial option fee? And what you need to do is try and work out what works best for you and try to give solutions during the conveyancing time to make the solution as best that it is for you. Additionally, if you're buying properties that have problems, they might not sort of have the gas safety certificate or an EICR or an EPC. And what you can do is that you need to tell your solicitor to limit those type of queries because you're not getting bank finance. But what you can do is during the conveyancing process, you can line up all those documents and get them in play before you take legal responsibility for the property. So now that we've got the deal, we've spoken to the solicitors, another key aspect is that you always need to be raising finance. Now, this is something I'm trying to improve on a daily basis, and it's not always the easiest to do. But if you're looking to scale a business, your funds will run out eventually, or you'll be in a situation where build works overrun, things cost more. And so you've always got to be looking for finance and how to attract that. So someone told me that I've always need to be seeding. And what that means is that you need to tell everyone that you know whenever you have a conversation of what you do in property. Now, it could be sort of I refurb properties I'm looking to buy, but the aspect is that this is what I do and I work with investors. And it's got to include that you're working with investors all the time. So every time I see someone, listen, I work with investors, I give them opportunities for their invest in property, and that's what I tell everyone. And it's something that you kind of subconsciously need to be doing all the time. If you've never raised investment finance before, don't start big. Just try to do something small, 5, 10 grand, it could be less than that. It helps you build trust and a track record with people. It also helps your own confidence because it's really difficult to go ask people for money, and you need to get out of that mindset of asking them for money, but providing an opportunity for them to invest in you. Also, it's easier to offer a fixed return, sort of a debt finance. So they'll lend you money for a certain period and you'll give them a percentage on that. It's far simpler and easier to draw up a contract that way. You also need to take investment into your company rather than in your personal name because you've got limited liability for that. And try not to tie it to a particular project. Projects can go wrong. They can overlay. It costs more. If it's into your company, then you can invest it into 2 or 3 different projects if you're doing that, and you can spread their risk. The most important is that you don't ever want to lose investors' money. And so if you can spread and minimize their risk and putting it into your company, it's a lot safer than tying it into one project. If that goes wrong, you've lost everything and you've lost your credibility as well. And more importantly, you've lost their money, which is not good. If also in terms of people want clarity, they want in terms of the communication. So I have investors that don't want any communication. They just put the investment, and after 12 months, I just send them an email before, what bank would you like it back? And that's fine. You need to sort of understand how people communicate. Then there's other investors who love to see the job and they want to see videos and they want to go out for coffee and they want to go site visits. So you kind of need to understand how people communicate and what they want from you for the investment. I have one person at the moment, I'm teaching him how to invest in property. And part of that is like he's investing money in me into a deal and I'm kind of helping him, showing him how to do it. So there's different ways to get investors. And I think you just kind of maybe need to think a little bit out the box in terms of it. So one way that I do it is I've always been quite poor on social media. And now I put sort of more stuff out there of how I help people and what sort of deals I'm doing. And I think that's very important because it's like a little diary out there where people can kind of see what you're doing. A lot of people won't comment or like on anything, but they'll kind of follow you. And when the time is right, they'll probably come speak to you on it. Now, as you do more deals, it's easier to get investor confidence. But it is something that you need to be raising funds all the time. I've had it before. You're halfway through a build, everything costs more, and all of a sudden everything stops because you don't have money. And so it's something, if you want to scale and you want to grow your business, private finance is kind of a way to do it. Okay, communication with builders. So we've got the money, we've got the deal, we're starting the build works. Now, a lot of people look at builders as just the laborers or the people that are getting the job done. These are your partners in business. If they don't do the work, you're not going to get anywhere. And simple gestures like buying people a drink or some food or helping them or putting something on social media for them, it goes a long way. I mean, these are people, they graft hard, they're up there early, they're getting dirty, and they're inevitably making money for you in the long run. So you kind of need to treat them well. You need to treat them like their partner in your business. And what I do I try and make their life as easy as possible with it. So on the right hand side is something like a little job spec I send out. And so basically what I do is I give them the address, I give them where they need to invoice, who they need to contact, how they're going to access, where they're going to park, when the work's going to start, what works are required, who's supplying the material. And in that way, it's a lot easier for them to be able to price a job. And if something changes and there's any amendments, we can always go back and look at this. And it's very clear for both parties to understand. You also need to pay builders extremely quickly. Most of these guys are managing cash flow. They've got a couple of jobs inside and they need to be paid every week. I pay builders every week on a Friday to make sure that they are not sort of stopped, because if they don't have the cash flow to pay their people that work for them, they're not going to show up on Monday, and that's going to impact your job. So you need to be helping them manage their business, which means you need to manage their cash flow. Additionally, it's always very good to sort of understand day rates and how much people are charging you. And the reason why you do this is that inevitably something's going to go wrong on site. There's going to be something that's more difficult to do or takes longer. And if you understand the day rate and you've agreed with them beforehand, if it's going to take 2 days longer, you just need to pay them 2 days worth of extra wage to get this done. And by having very clear rates of what they do, it takes away that difficult conversation to have with them. Everything overruns, everything costs more. And so you need to have a little bit of clarity and a little bit of understanding, because these people don't want to come work for free and you need to help to make their life easier. What we do is we generally manage our build ourselves. We don't get sort of a main contractor to do that. And we generally find 1 or 2 competent trades on site. It's often either an electrician, a carpenter, or a plumber. And what we do is that we ask them for recommendations of who they can recommend for the other trades. And what happens is they kind of make a little bubble, a little team, and they can kind of self-manage themselves. And you'll almost end up just communicating with a plumber, and he will kind of manage all the people that he works with. He'll obviously like to work with certain people, so he recommends that people, and it just makes the job run a little bit smoother. As we're doing more jobs and things like that, you do need to start like sort of working sort of Gantt charts and looking sort of what happens on a daily, weekly basis and plan ahead. These guys are also planning their weeks ahead, and you kind of need to plan and understand what day they're coming on site, when are the material needs, and who's going to be buying those materials. So we've got the builders. Now it's how to communicate with yourself. For me, the biggest stress of running a company or running multiple projects is that there's a lot of money going out all the time. And for me, that was extremely stressful, because you're paying, and you only get paid once when the property sells. So I have sort of something I sort of look at on a weekly basis, and I sort of understand how much money is going out in the company. Now, your finances are going to be broken down. You can either do them weekly or monthly. And this needs to sort of be something that you're doing all the time to sort of manage the different bills that you have out there. So you're going to have generally your outgoings, which is going to be sort of what your operations are in terms of the actual outgoings for each project. Then you sort of got the outgoings of your business, so your business expenses, your property filter membership, your networking memberships, and all other things, your accountancy fees, your tax, and those sort of aspects that are coming out of the business. Then you're also repaying back investors, either interest or when their loans need to be repaid back. Then as you're building your business, obviously your incomings are going to sort of be your rental incomes or when you sell properties. And what you've got to do is you've got to match all your months, line them all up and see how much money you need each month. You can have a property that's profitable, but if you're only getting paid in 9 months' time, you need to be able to afford that property going forward. And by doing this, not only for your month, but sort of scheduling it 6 or 12 months in advance, you can see when your company is needing capital and when it needs capital. You can then go to market and try raise that capital sort of with either an investor or do a JV project with someone. But that just takes a lot of stress away from doing build works. So this year was the first time that I've done multiple projects at once, and kind of I nearly got caught out with this, and now this is something I need to religiously do to make sure that everything stays on track and that the build works and everything all keeps going. You have no money, you can't do any build works. Lastly, I think social media is a great aspect in order to grow your business. I know a lot of people out there sort of post a lot of stuff, and I try to do as well. I was a bit sort of anti it. I'm quite personal. I didn't want to put it out there, but a lot of us are running small businesses. We don't have big teams out there. We don't have budget for marketing. maybe we employ a VA or something like that, but we don't have a massive team around us who can go out there. Social media is like a free window. You can put your stuff out there and you can find deals and you can find investors. Now, it's all about consistency. Even if you don't have anything to post, if you go to a viewing, take a little video, tell people what you're doing, talk about a spreadsheet, talk about an area that you've gone to visit. There's a lot that you can talk about. And I think it's just being consistent, like picking Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you think you can communicate with people, put a little bit of stuff out there. Most of us are interested with what you're doing and your success. And you can post things when you're not doing things well as well. People can give you advice, but posting it out there, people see you. And there's a lot of people that don't comment or like anything, but they are out there, and eventually they do come out the woodwork and they say, listen, I've got 10 grand, I've got 20 grand. I really like what you're doing. Can I come joint venture or do something with you? So generally, I sort of document site visits, what I'm doing, progress updates, sort of the numbers, lessons I've learned, something that I've done incorrect. But a very key one that I do now is I make a lot of videos of what trade people do. So this is a friend of mine from Blaze Carpentry. And when he does something, or any of the electricians or the plumbers or anything do something, I take videos of what they're doing all the time and I do little voiceovers, and then I promote their business. I then tag them, they reshare it, and they kind of enjoy working for me now because I kind of make little videos for them, make 3 or 4 videos for them. I send it through to them. They can make promotional videos. And it's kind of like we marketing each other. For the first time this year, I've had someone watch a video. They've sent me a deal and they've sent me the vendor's name. And they're like, my neighbor's selling a property. They're struggling. Here's someone. And that's a deal that's going to make 30 grand from just a video. It's not even me looking for something. It's something that's come back from me. So I think it's a great opportunity to find something. If you don't know what to do, ChatGPT is out there. It can help you with all of this. If you're not good at writing, it can do all of that stuff for you. But what I'd always do is that you've always got to put sort of like an ending to it. So always finish off, like whether you're looking for investment or a little project. So you've always got to sort of have a little catchphrase right at the end. So if you're looking for investors, you kind of offer me for returns, or if you're looking for deals, just put a little catchphrase, and you never know when something's going to come there and out the woodwork can help you. So I hope you've learned something today and kind of understood how I run my business and what I'm learning. I'm kind of learning all the time. That's a Linktree link. You can book a call with me. You can have a chat. We can look over a project you're doing. For me, it's very important for people to understand about lease options and assisted sales. We need to try get it out there and be more mainstream, because the more people that are doing it, the more easier it is to negotiate, and there's going to be more deals for everyone. So thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you found this useful.
James, thank you so much. That was really like full of golden nuggets, like very much the reality of a scale deal maker, doing lots of stuff. That was super, super valuable, thanks so much. Really appreciate how you went through really talking through like the principles of the lease options and the assisted sales and the realities of it, and how do you go about finding them and putting into the vendors. Most people think that if you want, keep your thing up, if you want like these people can scan the QR code and thing, and if you have it, you can put in the chat as well. And I really appreciate how you described and detailed, like really step by step, how you run the conversation with the agents. And most people think, and it's a limited belief, that you can't do deals with agents, etc., etc. You can't do creative deals with agents. How do I get them to accept an offer that low, etc.? But you just explain it like step by step. How do you do like in the southeast of England, where there's a belief that there's no deals, around there, So thanks a lot for that. That was really, really great. And so many like little tactical tips, like you ring them, you make sure they're in front of their computer, you send the offer whilst you are there, and you read it through to them. That's really great. And the way you write them in a way they can just forward it, they have nothing to do. It's really, really, really great. And then all the what's in it for the agent as well. So you mentioned about we pay in 4 weeks at exchange. So it's not, there's 3 parties involved, and how do you sell it to the person who's going to sell it for you? So you do it really, really great. And what I really loved is the reality. People come to me all the time and say, oh, Guillaume, I've tried this for 2 weeks and it didn't work. And what did you say? 40, 60 offers before you got the first one over the line, and now you've got 7 projects on the go. Is that right? I mean, do you want to comment a bit more about that? the reality of all this compound and the momentum you have to build, you know?
I think when you're doing something new, sometimes it's quite difficult for you to believe it yourself. You phone agents like, oh, the vendor's not going to accept it. It's not how we do it. It's not how we do it. But you got to believe that's what you do. And eventually they will come to it. And if the agents don't like it, you go to the next one. There's hundreds of them out there. And you just keep plugging, and you refine your process. And they didn't like this, or they didn't like this type of terminology. We need to take that terminology out. We offer, they don't like that type of offer. Then we go again with something else. It's also very important to have a follow-up process. So everything that I offer on, I have it in sort of the property filter. That's what I've offered on. This is what I need to follow up. And then sort of every week you follow up, you chase up, and things do fall over. A lot of properties fall over. They will come back on the market. And I position myself with some agents. I he's that irritating guy that phones every week, and some of them I really enjoy, but they know who I am and they know specifically know what I'm looking for. And so most of the deals out there come through agents. Most people like you need to go direct to vendor, but you just need to build a few key relationships with a few estate agents, and you've got a massive pool of properties. And I think something like Property Filter helps you chase quite quickly. You can see what price the properties come on. You can see that it's fallen over a few times. You can ask the agent what's wrong with it. Why has 2 deals fallen over? You can then give them solutions. Well, listen, if there was no structural issues, would it sell quicker? If I needed to put a new kitchen and a new bathroom, would this be able to sell? And so you kind of, if you throw an idea and they give and say, yes, if you put someone put a new kitchen, new bathroom, you're able to sell it. And you say, great, how about I go put a new kitchen, new bathroom, and then you sell it again on the second time. So I think it's all about communication. Like I really struggle with communication at the start today on it. Everything in business and life is about communicating and communicating effectively with someone. So I think that's probably the most important topic is like keep communicating, keep telling people what you do, and eventually the deals will come. It's not meant to be easy, otherwise everyone would do it. But just believe in what you're doing, be very specific, and you will get deals.
Yeah, definitely. And then it's how you said it. With your follow-up, do you tend to call them every week, or what's your sort of follow-up regime?
I I put them on a CRM system, and it just gets automated.
You send emails, or is it you
I
follow?
send emails, and then the ones that I really like that I feel quite upset about, I'll phone them every week and say, okay, well, definitely I'm keen on that, keen on that.
Yeah, yeah. So as they get warmer, basically, you pick up the phone more. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's the bits about, you win or you learn, you refine all the time, and it's just, people want the script, but the reality is nothing is going to beat your experience of actually dealing with it and doing more of it, So now it's all, I'm guessing now everything you do is all templated because you've refined it over this 40, 60 offers.
yeah.
Now you know what works and you're doing more of it. That's great. And I really love the bits about the handling every agent possible objections, around, oh, I imagine you're getting referral from your solicitors, because this is a little bit outside, like what sort of money do you get? Okay, let's get this agreed, And then this clear communication from the outset, the heads of term sent to both party, or you pay both money on side, just control the whole thing, which is really, really, really great. And again, the positioning about you've covered all aspects, like it's been a really cool masterclass, of raising money. How do you people have to go through this thing about offering an opportunity rather than being the person asking for money, which is really great. And how you are actually you're looking for deals all the time, you're looking for funding all the times, and it's how you build momentum, So fair play to you, man. It's really, really, really cool. And then all the builders part. Do you guys have got any questions? So there's lots of really cool. People are really grateful and lots of really thank yous for you, James. Any questions? We want me to ask James on your behalf. We'll go through it. I think earlier we had Heather asking about where do you find your investor. You kind of partly answered the question. You answered the question on as part of the presentation later. Do you want to tell us a bit more?
Most investors you'll find will be on your phone or on your
Really?
social media. And I think you've already created a connection with them. It's difficult to go out to someone cold and try sell them an opportunity. But if you know someone, it's far easier to ask them. And I think start with friends and family. All they can do is say no, and then, or you can try sell through them. Just say, listen, I've got a great opportunity. We offer 10 or 15% return. We're looking for a 20 grand investment. Do you know anyone that would be interested? So if you're a bit afraid to ask them directly, ask them if they can recommend someone and they might want it themselves. So I think it's just about trying different aspects. I mean, if people say no, it's no. You've you haven't hurt a friendship. Um, you've just asked them if they want an opportunity. You've not asked them to lend money. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you need to be very careful and not ask someone, listen, do you have 20 grand for me? Say, listen, I've got an opportunity for someone to make 2 or 3 grand profit on this. I'm looking for a 20 grand investment. Would you know anyone?
Yeah.
And
Who do you know who's got a 20 grand that they'd like a better return for?
yeah,
That's great. Who do you use? Who are the solicitors you use? You are with MS Law or guys like that?
I use a guy called Andrew Brown at MS Law,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
they're pretty much the go-to people for this kind of lease options and stuff. Yeah. Great. So, where are you based? So, can you explain a bit more? So, someone's asking you did at the intro, but if you can tell us a bit the radius of where you are based and where you invest.
I lived in South London for the last 13 years, and then I found it quite a difficult market to be in London. It's very expensive. So I moved to Kent and I just invest in Kent. I live in a place called Faversham, which is near Canterbury, and I invest anywhere about 45 minutes drive from my house. There's a lot of opportunity out here. There's a lot of empty properties. And
And
so I
when you outreach and look for specific properties, what are your criteria? Do you mainly look at sales flowing through and property problems, or you've got tighter criteria? What prompts you to start a conversation, and what's a good enough lead for you to invest yourself in reaching out?
so we have two types of properties we go for. The first is mixed use. That's we retain to keep because the yields are better and the
Yeah,
stamp duty is far lower. So as a long-term asset, you put far less capital in. They generally it's on the square foot price is a lot cheaper, and because if you're buying something at 300,000 to 500,000, the stamp is far less than what you would do if you're buying sort of traditional residential. Um, I've done talks for a long time at the Central London Property Network. I know there's a lot of flats out there. There's a lot of landlords selling flats, so we generally do not look to flip flats. We look for houses. Houses sell far quicker, and so we look anywhere generally between 3 and 4 bedroom houses for people that will either sort of be buying their first or second house.
yeah, that's
So
awesome.
I think that the easiest if you're looking to do a flip project and you don't know what it's going to sell at, phone a couple of estate agents in the areas that you work at, and you ask them what are most people registering in terms of buyers. And if they say most people are buying property somewhere in the region of 300 to 350, you need to know that you need to pick up something around 250 mark, add 40 grand and be able to get 40 grand investment on or profit from that. So the easiest is to find out what is the target market and what are they buying at. And then you can work backwards of what you need to source in order to sell it to the biggest pool of buyers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or how low is your low offer? Do you compare to your assisted sell offer? I'm asking you, I'll tell you why I'm asking you this, because I find a lot of the people are scared to ask to put low offers, and when they offer the low offer or the assisted sell offer, they really hope for the assisted sell offer, but they didn't offer low enough on the low offer, and the vendor goes for the low offer, right? And then they're like, oh shit, they accepted this one, and it's quite common, right? So I'm just wondering if you ever had stuff like that, and how low, what percentage wise, how much lower is your low offer compared to your assisted sell offer?
If we are offering something around 250 for an assisted sale, we'll probably try to offer 210 for a cash buy. So it's a good 30, 40 grand less.
Yeah.
But it really depends on sort of what the value of the property is. I just need to know if someone accepts a cash offer, can I add 5 grand to this and sell it off to someone extremely quickly who would still think they're getting a good deal? Because
Yeah,
you
so
don't want to get a cash offer accepted, they accept it, then you can't perform, and then you've burned that
that's
relationship.
right. Yeah. Mm. So it really needs to be low enough, yeah. Mm.
It needs to be low enough, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are selling that need the money, but I try to convince them to go with an assisted sale or a lease option because that's what I prefer.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
capital involved.
No, that's great. And someone's asking, how long's been the shortest lease option you've done, or the shortest term in terms of one of those creative strategies?
Okay, so for a lease option, if you're looking to buy it yourself, I would say the shortest will be 6 months that you need because the financing on the back end will take at least 3 months. So you need to rely on or have a specific time frame to give them enough time to get the conveyancing and get the finance all in place. The problem is with an option is that if you put an option in play, you add value to the property and then you don't complete, that property goes back to the vendor. Then you've put 20, 30, 40 grand into someone else's property and there's nothing. You've got no security over it. Once it's timed out, your security over the property is finished.
Yeah.
So generally what happens is that when you have an option in play, whether it's an option or assisted sale, your solicitor would register an RX1, which is a charge against the property which prevents the seller from selling it without getting authorization from your solicitor. Once a contract is terminated, that RX1 in your security is gone too. And so then you've kind of lost everything. In terms of an assisted sale, we put it forward at 6 months. And then during the negotiations, we extend it to 9 months. Now, because a lot of properties are sitting on the market, and if it's 6 months, it's too close. You've got a 6-week build or a 2-month build, and then you've got to market it, and you've got to try complete within 6 months. You're cutting it a bit fine. So you want to do it to 9 months, and you want to tell the vendor it's at 9 months in case something falls through, and I have the right to extend it by another 3 to 6 months in case the sale falls through. Generally, they'll accept an extension to the option if you pay them something like 5 or 10 grand to extend it just to protect your security on the property. But generally, they'll only want to extend if you pay them in that sort of another lump sum to do it. That lump sum is deductible, but it's just that showing commitment as well.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And the mechanism you use for your assisted sale, is it a lease option or is it some exchange and delayed completion with some kind of a conditional exchange or something like that?
I use a lease option for an assisted sale. It just has a terminology that you can assign it to someone else.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Someone's asking about okay, so then what's the longest lease options you'd look at agreeing? As long as possible.
I think that the longer the better, because the longer you have it in play, the more the capital appreciation goes up generally.
Yeah.
So I know there's a couple of people that have 5-year lease options in play and the value just keeps going up and up and up. So when they actually buy it, sometimes they've agreed a price and it doubles in value by the time they purchased it.
Yeah. No, definitely. Peter was asking about how did you go about putting off the bad tenant rehousing? Can you tell us a bit more about what was involved on this one?
So the tenant she was in a situation where she struggled to pay because she had a daughter
That's right. Yeah.
Who's extremely autistic, and she used to get carers allowance for it.
Yeah.
Now what happens is that when the daughter becomes 18, that payment then goes through to the daughter, and the daughter's got a mentality of a young child, and so she just squanders the money and doesn't sort of help with the rent. So it put her in quite a difficult position that she couldn't afford the rent. I then issued a Section 21. So rather than a Section 8, which the council don't particularly like, you kind of have to issue a Section 21 and just explain to them, like, you need to play ball with this so I can help you get rehomed with the council. Now, once the Section 21 is in place and you get a warrant of possession, you can then go to the council and say, well, listen, I've formally get evicted, and they will help you get the person rehomed. So I just liaised with that, got them rehomed, and then you kind of help move all their belongings out of the property, put it in storage, because generally they go to temporary accommodation before they get something permanent. So there's all these sort of, like, she's a single mother. You go help her, you get your lads to take all the possessions, put it in storage, you pay for the storage because they don't have that much money. You then keep communication until she gets somewhere that she can move to full-time, then move all her belongings there. So it's just about babying them. Well, not babying is probably not the right word, but just helping them out. A lot of these people are in a financial situation where a couple of £100 for storage, they do not have it. But having their belongings in the house stops you from the refurb. So,
well, that's great. You whatever it takes to help. Managing the situation. Question from Abisoye: What feature do you use on Property Filter to find your lease option and assisted sales?
I generally try not over filter, because then sometimes you lose a couple of things. I want 3 to 4 bedroom houses at this price, and then I normally filter them to find out what properties I want by the lowest per square foot price compared to the average. So rather than looking at properties that's got, a lot of people go, what property has decreased in price the most? I just want the cheapest price per square foot compared to the average properties, because then I generally know I'm buying cheap and I can at least sell cheap on the back end to sell quickly. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you can't when you're doing something and you've got a time frame, you can't sit there and wait and wait and wait to get the best money. You need to sell it to someone 10 or 15 grand lower than market value, so he believes he's getting a good deal. Then they're not going to drag their feet and they will buy. And if they don't buy, you can stick it on and find someone who will take over that position quite quickly.
Yeah, yeah. How much below the asking price do you tend to get your properties agreed? Let's say
Um,
something's on the market for 300. Well, typically, what do you get it for?
which I think with the assisted sale or lease option, I try to give them as close to asking price as possible, but in a structure that I like. So it's either I want it cheap with a quick purchase, or I can give you closer to your asking price, but on a structure that benefits me with putting as little capital in the deal as possible.
Mm.
I think you always need to take a little bit off, but
You find you're like 15% off, 10, 20% off, or it
we
just
try 10 to 15% off generally.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's just to bounce on this thing where people will scroll through the right moves of this world and say, oh, there's no deals out there. But going back to my favorite saying that deals are made, not found, you know. So it's just, having those conversations and offering them option. Oh, it's been great.
I
No,
think if you make enough offers, so if you want to buy low and get a cheap offer, go make 100 offers, someone will buy it at a price that you want. The value is what you pay for the property. So if you got cash and you just do cash offers all the time, someone will eventually buy it.
I love how you structure your like growth engine where you've got this investor-led assisted sale where you double your pot all the time, and this allows you to then put your money into those mixed use that you hold because they yield better in your area. It's very well thought out. Most people will think to themselves, "Oh, I want to get rich in property," and then just go and do whatever, and end up doing very little. So it's a really great example of being really really well structured about that. So yeah, so. Thanks a lot for that, James. Do you have a sort of a closing sentiment for us today before we sort of wrap up?
Um, I think a lot of people chase a lot of different properties, and I think if you're very specific of what you're looking for and you can communicate that clearly with an estate agent, you'll find properties quite comfortably. So our strategy is we sell houses that's 3 to 4 bedrooms. We sell 2 houses to have enough capital to run the company, have an income, and buy one mixed use property. And it's very simple. Like that is just all we're doing for the next 5 years. We're not looking elsewhere. I'm not looking in different parts of the UK. If you focus and you really niche on what you want, you'll get very good at it. And I think just focus on something. It'll be difficult in the beginning, but eventually it'll pay off.
Yeah, I love it. Man, thank you so much. I know it was really a long overdue sort of interview, so I'm really, really glad we managed to arrange that, and I'm glad and I'm very thankful for you to come and share all your operational secrets and everything there. So once more, make sure I was gonna say you hook up with James, connect with him in the community or in the QR code he shared earlier. Really, like he's a great human being and doing really, really great and interesting stuff. Very, very generous and grateful, to have you in the community. So James, thank you very much. And thank you everyone of you guys for joining us today. Sorry for the little delayed start, and I hope you enjoyed it just like I did. And I look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, you know what to do. Log on to Property Filter account, the Property Filter community. Follow the blueprint, have an endless supply of deals. Join the top 1% of investors out there, and yeah, go and smash it. Like go and go. There are all the deals out there are for you to make. So go and make your deals. And until next time, speak with you soon. James, thanks so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.